Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 14th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The San Diego County Board of Supervisors today backed a plan to sue gunmakers for deadly shootings, which some say is necessary to diminish the company's capacity to profit off of people's deaths. One legal expert tells KPBS's Alexander Nguyen the county could be in for a big fight.
Gun manufacturers are not known for simply surrendering in the face of litigation threats.
San Diego lawyer Dan Eden says government suing gun manufacturers is not new.
The proposal is designed to take a page from LA's playbook with respect to gun manufacturers that are providing kits that may subvert a California law with respect to background checks and gun serialization.
Los Angeles is suing ghost gun makers Polymer 80 for selling its kits without background checks or serializations. Under the new policy, San Diego County could join the lawsuit.
The measures that are put in place in California give us the 7th lowest gun violence death rate in the entire nation. And so we know that there are things that can work and help and do good.
There are two prongs to the policy. The first is for the county's Chief Administrative Officer, Helen Robbins Myers, to get data from the Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement agencies on gun seizures in the county. These are guns taken from people who shouldn't have them, such as convicted felons.
You know, I feel this is going to be helpful and meaningful information to collect.
Supervisors Jim Desmond and Joel Anderson supported obtaining data on gun seizures. However, they voted against the new policy. Giving the county the authority to sue gun companies follows calls for elected officials to tackle gun control following a rise in deadly mass shootings, such as in Buffalo and Uvalde. At today's meeting, the majority of speakers were from the Gun Owners Coalition. They called the policy ludicrous.
People are a product of the society. If you get rid of guns, people are going to use whatever they can.
Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
President Biden is addressing concerns over inflation as the Federal Reserve considers raising interest rates higher. Reporter Isabel Rosales looks at where the economy stands and what experts say you should be doing now to prepare.
Investors are on edge as the Federal Reserve is headed for rough waters. The central bank is debating raising the interest rate by 0.75 percentage point, unseen since 1994. The goal is to cool down the economy and tame inflation, President Joe Biden's top economic priority.
Jobs are back, but prices are still too high. COVID is down, but gas prices are up. Our work isn't done.
Without many options to fight price hikes or gas prices, Biden instead touting ultra-low unemployment numbers and some economic recovery from the pandemic.
I've never been more optimistic about America than I am today.
Plus, a key inflation reading showing a small glimmer of hope Tuesday, revealing a slight slowdown in rising prices.
Inflation has been a real problem in the country, and it is proving to be stickier and more stubborn than officials had hoped.
So what can you do to protect your money? Financial experts say continue to invest in your 401ks and retirement accounts.
Don't panic. And the reason I say that is, how many times have we seen the market go down?
The next steps depends on your financial situation and how much time you have left before retirement.
If you're somebody out there living paycheck to paycheck, or you don't have an emergency fund, or you're not funding a retirement account, you should stop going out to eat, going on vacation, and doing all those things.
Bottom line, cut down on the non-essentials. Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
State lawmakers have sent their version of $300 billion budget to Governor Newsom. He doesn't support it, but lawmakers say they had to send it or not get paid. Both sides will continue negotiating, hoping to get a deal by July 1st. The biggest disagreement is how to return billions to taxpayers to help offset record high gas prices. Democrats also want to spend more on education, including covering college tuition for 150,000 more students. Another plan calls for helping first-time home buyers. California's surplus is more than $97 billion. Bike lanes in University Heights continue to cause friction between people who say they are a necessity and others who say they're bad for business. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado says merging the two will not be easy.
You must be at full attention when driving down Park Boulevard in University Heights. It's busy, so there's little room for error. As we pull alongside a guy on a bike, I roll down my window and ask if he's excited about the bike lanes the city's making for cyclists like him.
Thumbs up?
We'll see once they're in. I'm not so sure.
If you missed that, he said he's not too sure. Not the reaction I expected at all.
I hope they work for everyone because I think the businesses are going to be negatively impacted by all this.
Guido Hammacher pulled over and gave us a little more insight. He says he lives in the neighborhood and bikes daily to take his son to school, run errands, and work out. He says this could work, but on parallel streets that aren't as busy and won't make it near impossible to go to his favorite local hangouts.
I'm torn about it because on the one hand I see what is supposed to be achieved. I feel a lot of the businesses are being impacted by not being able to swing by, park with the car because parking spaces are gone, and yeah, I don't know how this is all going to play out on the long run.
Definitely not pleased or excited about them at all.
He's not alone. We couldn't find one person who liked them. And people who depend on this area for their livelihood, like Rob DeRue, a stylist at Park Salon who's worked here for over 10 years, says it's not just inconvenient, but also bad for business and just won't work.
Taking those spots away is going to create a world of congestion. And it just doesn't make sense because we have surface streets on each side that are perfectly capable of facilitating the bike lanes or alternate routes for the bikers. This is a main artery of traffic through this neighborhood, and so it just makes absolutely no sense.
The number one reason for putting a bikeway in is to save lives, and I think, again, no amount of parking spaces is worth someone's life.
But Will Radigan with the Bike Coalition of San Diego County says 16 cyclists were killed last year in the city alone. He says he understands that it feels inconvenient, but in reality, only 10% of parking will shift to side streets. He says that change will be worth it.
We've seen over and over that people are really scared and confused before these new bikeways go in. But then once they're installed, within a few months, they realize the sky hasn't fallen. They can actually still drive where they need to go pretty easily. But now everyone's a little bit safer.
The project will continue through Balboa Park in the fall. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
The Mission Beach Town Council is calling on the city to start enforcement of street vendors on their beaches next week. KPBS Speak City Heights reporter Jacob Ayers says it comes as a sidewalk vending ordinance is set to take effect across the city of San Diego.
We've seen this park change from a place where families from all over the city would gather and enjoy one of the most popular beaches in the city to a place that is overrun and has been taken over by street vendors who block the visual and physical access to the beach.
Mission Beach residents and business owners gathered at Belmont Park Tuesday to express their frustrations over street vending. Larry Webb is the president of the Mission Beach Town Council. He says a municipal code from the late 1980s should prohibit retail and commercial uses in the Mission Beach Park area.
We believe that the city of San Diego has violated the California Coastal Act and the city's municipal code for the last several years by allowing street vending, which is an obvious retail use, to take over Mission Beach Park.
Webb's group says that the old law should supersede the one that's set to go into effect next week in many parts of San Diego, except the beach communities, because the Coastal Commission needs to approve it. Anya Prophet is a street vendor who braids hair near the beach. She welcomes some of the upcoming rules, as she says things have gotten a bit out of hand.
Last summer was a lot different, but now there's people hold their spot.
they hold their spot with their tents. And I can see how like the community will be upset about that because it's like they come out here in the morning for jogs and stuff like that, and you have all these empty shells.
Tony Sanfelice is a resident and member of the environmental group Don't Trash Mission Beach. He says the garbage in the area has been a growing problem over the past few years.
But to see dirty diapers left in parking lots or buried in the sand, or glass bottles broken purposefully and fires left, this is a daily onslaught.
Leticia Torres is another street vendor at Mission Beach who agrees with regulations. She pays her taxes and has her permits and is frustrated with what she calls a lack of respect and in some cases outright racism from some in the community.
The racist people say, you don't pay taxes. And right now, we're already coming from the city hall and we pay the selling permits. We have the selling permit. We have it in the ID street vendor. And we have my receipt. Everything. We pay taxes.
San Diego's new sidewalk vending ordinance takes effect on June 22nd. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Crews have stopped a wildfire that quickly spread to hundreds of acres near the border, but it will still take days to fully contain it. The Border 13 fire has burned 577 acres, and at last check, it was 15% contained. CAL FIRE says the terrain is difficult for the roughly 10 aircraft trying to put out the flames while fighting strong winds. Fortunately, though, it's not threatening any homes or any buildings. Captain Thomas Shute says this fire should serve as a warning.
Not even close to having our fields completely dried out. So as we march into July, August, September, we're going to see fires like this that can just burn rapidly, exponentially bigger than this one right now.
The fire was burning about a quarter-mile southeast of another fire in the Del Zora area. The Barrett fire burned 65 acres and was 50% contained today. 5 military officers are now formally reprimanded for their role in an accident that killed 8 Marines and 1 sailor. The censures all but end any future promotions. This video shows some of the victims of the sinking of an amphibious assault vehicle in 2020 off the coast of San Clemente Island. The Navy says the pandemic played a factor in forcing leadership to adjust and shorten the group's training schedule. Hundreds of San Diego police officers got to skip the COVID vaccine because they said it was against their religion. But that exemption came with a requirement that they test for COVID regularly. Now, KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser says some of those officers say their religion also prevents them from taking COVID tests.
Officers told the city on religious exemption forms that the Bible instructs them not to put cotton swabs in their nose. My beliefs stand for keeping my body clean and free from such unnecessary drugs and chemicals, one officer wrote. The phrase, I trust in God's perfect design of my body, was repeated 19 times in the records obtained by KPBS. We previously reported on many officers using the exact same answers on their forms and copying those answers from form letters on the internet. About 10% of the police records KPBS received, the city is providing them on a rolling basis, makes this religious argument against using swab tests. The city's Human Resources Department is still deciding how to handle those requests. But in the meantime, the officers are still on the job and are unvaccinated and not getting tests. The officers claim that the swabs contain a cancer-causing chemical called ethylene oxide, but they don't.
The use of ethylene oxide is not new.
Dr. David Pride is an infectious disease specialist at UC San Diego. He says ethylene oxide is not actually present on the swabs. It's used as a gas to sterilize them.
It's something that's been going on for many, many years. So if these were causing cancer in people, we would absolutely know about it now.
In fact, he says any police officer who's gotten an influenza test probably used a swab sterilized with ethylene oxide. Still, officers argued the Bible says they shouldn't take COVID tests. Some wrote, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 states, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God?"
It really strains credulity that this would have any application there at all.
Kara Lyons-Purdue is a New Testament professor at Point Loma Nazarene University.
It's talking about avoiding sexual immorality. These are so outside of the range of what could have even possibly been imagined by the Apostle Paul when he's writing, or the Corinthian Christians as they're reading it.
Many officers refusing COVID tests also compared their stance to keeping kosher. "My belief in this regard is similar to the objection others have to eating unclean food," some officers wrote. Lyons-Purdue says equating nasal swabs to unclean food is also not biblically sound.
This one seems just a really difficult, a mismatch for what Paul is even addressing, and the ways that Christians have applied kosher laws in a symbolic way to other aspects of life. It just simply doesn't fit.
As a Christian herself, Lyons-Purdue sees a biblical argument for actually getting the COVID vaccine and testing to avoid spreading a virus to others.
It strikes me that there's a great irony of using the scripture to seek to preserve even the slightest and really speculative possibility of minor harm to one's person, when so much of the New Testament is focused and really fixated on a testimony to a Savior who was willing to undertake death and then told Christians that they would need to take up their cross and follow.
Dr. Pride at UC San Diego suggested there might be another reason some San Diego police officers are refusing COVID-19 swab tests.
Who wants to get a swab stuck in their nose every week to be tested? But I think they're kind of barking up the wrong tree with the idea that they're going to get cancer from just getting these nasal swabs.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
The San Diego Police Officers Association and the San Diego Police Department did not respond to requests for comment on this story. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria declined to comment. We've been covering the COVID-19 vaccine religious exemptions for police officers and other city employees. You can find this story and all of our past coverage at kpbs.org. The San Diego Repertory Theater recently announced it would be suspending all productions and laying off its entire staff. Now, as KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando tells us, the cast of its recently closed show are alleging racism and misogyny at the Rep.
When San Diego Rep's production of The Great Con closed in March, the 6-person cast delivered a statement written by actress Michaela Bartholomew at the final curtain call. Here's part of that statement read by cast member Jerome Beck that night.
We make this statement as a cast and crew that has been subject to mistreatment, much of it disproportionately impacting the Black team members on this show over the last 2 months. And while it brought us all together, it exhausted us, depleted us. But we hope that it sparks a lasting change in this theater.
Then, after the Rep announced its decision to suspend operations, the group shared a letter on Instagram. In it, they say they were subjected to, quote, racism, misogyny noir, discrimination and disrespect, racial profiling of hired artists, physical intimidation, and ill care following injury while working at the Rep. The Rep's artistic director, Sam Woodhouse, did not directly respond to the allegations. However, he read from a prepared statement.
Our goal remains, and we have much work to do towards this goal, to become a fully inclusive, equitable, anti-racist, multicultural organization.
One of the people losing their job because of the Rep's suspension of operations is Ahmed Kenyatta Dents, host of the Rep's We Are Listening Salon series. The final episode aired last night, and Dents acknowledged all those who will no longer be employed by the Rep after June 19th, and referenced an event the theater will be holding on June 20th.
I noticed invitations sent out about the toast and to celebrate the whatever, and all the artists and colleagues who come through here. I get it. I understand it. There should be some type of celebration. I feel you. Have a drink for me. Cannot be there. I can't be there. I can't be there in good conscience. It's too many people working hard right now. It's too many people this is affected going out the door. It's the day after we're getting laid off, and it's Juneteenth. Can't be there.
Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Secretary of State Antony Blinken responds to the criticisms of President Biden's upcoming trip to Saudi Arabia. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
North County's largest city is the latest to ask residents to be mindful of their water use. Oceanside's move follows a state order urging cutbacks, and those include using water for irrigation between the hours of 6 and 10 a.m., limit the use of sprinklers, fix leaks within 72 hours, and no decorative fountains unless it uses reclaimed water. Some properties like parks, sports fields, and cemeteries are exempt.
We have a little temperature roller coaster that we're going to be on as we go on throughout, I'd say, the next couple of days and actually even into next week. We're still going to be feeling and experiencing a warming trend through our Thursday. And then we have a low pressure system that is going to bring us some cooler weather by Friday that will linger throughout the weekend. And then by the time we get into the middle of next week, we'll start to feel some warmer weather once again. I should say maybe some around average or even above average temperatures. But for tonight across the metro area, increasing clouds, and those low-level clouds at night and at morning with that marine layer, it's going to stay with us. So yeah, increasing for tonight, 63 degrees. At least that holds the temperatures on a mild side. More interior, where you have a little bit more of clearing and you're getting away from those low clouds, you'll find temperatures falling back to some lower 50s. El Cajon 59, Escondido dropping down to the mid 50s. By your Wednesday, the warmth starts to build across the Sierra Nevada and then again across areas of the Great Basin, the Four Corners. It's comfortable. Desert Southwest, still steaming, still hot, still triple digits expected. All right, throughout your Wednesday, there's the low-level cloud coverage there, the marine layer. But notice that after the lunch hour, it disperses. You get plenty of sunshine across the region, and overall, should be a pretty pleasant day across much of San Diego County. So again, you're looking at Ramona 91, that's more interior, El Cajon 85, San Diego lower 70s, Chula Vista 73 as well, Borrego Springs up to the triple digits. It's going to be just sizzling and searing heat. The heat is going to build across much of the Southwest as we go on throughout the week. So again, you get this warming trend through Thursday, then a system brings cooler weather, and you can see that by the cooler temperatures for Saturday and Sunday. So over the weekend, even across the mountains, even across the desert areas, while you're in the triple digits through Friday, you get a little bit of a break, if anything. Just temperature of 99 by Saturday, back to triple digits by Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Michelle Rotella.
And an ugly sight in Yosemite where vandals tagged more than 30 sites within the national park. Officials are asking anyone who might have seen those responsible to contact them. Spray paint was found on boulders and other sites along Yosemite Falls Trail. Photos posted on social media show rocks tagged with the word Fresno and other illegible writings. A group of San Diego high school students took a hike attempting to cover 100 miles to bring awareness to asylum-seeking immigrants. Their mission didn't go exactly as planned, but as KPBS education reporter MG Perez shows us, they got a lesson of a lifetime.
They're back in the hallways of High Tech High. About a dozen sophomores and freshmen who attempted a 100-mile hike across the Pacific Crest Trail. The trail is 2,600 miles of mountains and desert, leading north all the way to the Canadian border. It starts very close to the Mexican border here in San Diego County.
First day, we came out of Campo, and it was really hot.
15-year-old Silas Dreyer was among the young hikers now taking inventory of the equipment they use to go way out of their comfort zone. They left behind luxuries to survive with just what they could carry.
You get used to like how you organize your pack, how much weight, you discard things you don't need, and eventually you get that perfect amount of weight and perfect amount of gear that you need to like just get yourself there.
The High-Tech High hikers shared their videos and pics documenting the adventure. The biggest challenge every day was making sure they had enough water. The hike is called the 100 Degrees of Freedom.
It's really the degree of freedom, or the degree at which a migrant or a refugee is traveling on foot to seek asylum. And ultimately, we wanted students to experience what it's like to travel that far on foot.
The group made it a few days and to the 77-mile mark just east of Julian, tired with a bittersweet feeling and a lesson learned hiking in the footsteps of asylum seekers.
We were able to do stops. We went along trails. They have to go off nothing. So it was just something to really keep in mind, that they are after shelter and they need to survive and live, and I need to see that through my trip in my eyes.
Social awareness was also complemented by the physical and emotional victories too.
3,500 feet of climbing, and you got up at 4 a.m. How you feeling, bud?
I'm feeling very good. I just realized my mindset needed to change, and so I changed my mindset from being like, this is so hard, like this sucks, to like, you can do it, like literally, like you have to get through it because there is no like cop out.
I wasn't wobbling, but I was like, I was going quite slow, and to know that like I started at nearly almost 2 miles per hour, and we got to a point where we were nearly at 3, at even hotter temperatures, is really, it's something that makes me proud.
Mission accomplished for the hike of a lifetime. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. If you're someone who didn't like math in school, researchers may have the answer as to why. On Morning Edition, the science behind arithmetic anxiety. And a slow burn on Midday Edition, a report detailing how CAL FIRE has failed to fight PTSD and heavy workloads. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.